So we're ramping up for the new season. What are you guys doing for training to get there? Are you doing a lot of dry file drills or spend a lot of time at the range? Like, what do you do for your training?
Dan just trains every night. It's got 2-hour, 3-hour regimen out on the range, out doing dry fires. This guy makes me mad because he'll show up after not training for like 2 months and then kick butt at the.
Well, I brought my rifle and it's full of empty brass from Vegas match, farm finale. I'm just super busy with work, but I built my own barricade at home. It's in my basement, and I have some like these blue barrels and a couple tires I have at home if I ever get a chance. Dry firing is the number one thing. You know, I very rarely, once I get a load built on my rifle, if I get slap a new barrel on, I'll go do some load development, get a round built, and I don't have time to really change it after that, and I'll run it till that barrel's done and put a new barrel on. So going out and practicing, dry firing is, 95% as good as real fire practice, and sometimes it's even better depending on what you're doing. But yeah, dry firing. They make these things you can put on the end of your scope. I use one. It's called the DFAT. And the other one's the IOTA. And it helps it allows your scope to focus down to, 8-10 feet or something like that. And so I have in my basement's unfinished, and I've got my PRS barricade I built down there with a couple other random like props, like shooting off chairs and stuff. And I'll put a target on the wall. I slap that DFAT on the end, and allows me to be, I think 10, 12 feet away from the wall and be able to actually focus my scope on that and practice. And, just running that, it's the motions, right? It's the muscle memory. You run your bolt enough where you don't have to think about it, right? I'm more worried about, I'll run the bolt and not even think about it. And I'm looking at the wind. I'm looking at all these other factors, where my next target is if I'm transitioning. And I'm not even thinking about this muscle memory stuff that you get through the practicing. But that's how I practice, is with dry firing at home. Because you can go down and do that for 15, 20 minutes, and it helps a ton. And you don't have to go pack up all your stuff, drive out 30, 45 minutes out in the desert, set up targets, and come back. I mean, you're 4 hours deep by the time you get home.
And what most people end up doing is they go out, spend all this time to get ready, they drive out, and they go set out a target at 100 yards or 200 yards or 300 yards for paper, and they'll send half their rounds at 100 yards. Shooting at 100 yards is just an exercise of pain to me. There's no reason that anybody should be shooting their rigs at 100 yards after you've done your load development. After you've done your load development, and you need to zero your rifle. If I'm spending any time shooting 100 yards, unless I'm running like a dot drill with myself or one of my guys, I will not shoot at 100 yards or even 200, 300 yards. I'm going to shoot at distance. And then dry firing, like what Dan was saying, it's so crucial. Last year was a little bit slower for me with hosting a bunch of matches, but 2016 I shot 20,000 rounds out of my bolt guns, but I probably had 10 dry fire trigger pulls for every live round that I ever sent. So I would say that dry fire, more than anything, is what takes guys a lot of times to the next level.
I think for competition practice, I know for me, when I go out, if I actually have some time to shoot live rounds and go out, most people go out and they'll lay down, they'll set up paper, they'll zero their gun, and shoot 10, 15 rounds at paper, maybe chrono, and then they go and shoot a couple targets at distance, and then they'll
laying on their belly still.
Yeah, laying on their belly. They'll get warmed up, and then and then some guys will go out and practice a couple stages. I actually like to, as soon as I show up, because this is how it is at a match. Like, you show up, you don't have time to practice or warm up. You go straight into stage, and so I've been doing that the last year. As soon as I show up, I don't shoot paper or anything like that. I just run a stage. Like, I'll just make up a mock stage, this target here, that one there, and then off this rock and off this, and I'll just run that stage first, and because that's how it's really going to be during the game, right? And then if I have issues at that point, like, man, my rifle's way off or something, and then I'll go 0 after that, or chrono or something. But really, I mean, your rifle shouldn't. If you've got a good set of rings and good scope, and you've got a good case, you put it in. You're not throwing your rifle around. I mean, it really shouldn't be moving.
Yeah, and the guys that are constantly going down and re-zeroing their guns, they either have something mechanical going on, but more often than not, it isn't that. It's a cold shooter, or somebody that hasn't, at 100 yards, having your parallax set up properly is really crucial to get just the tightest 100-yard groups. But our game isn't won by the guys who have the tightest shooting groups. It's the guys that have been practicing the most and are managing their recoil the best and are reading the wind the best. So why am I going to spend all my time trying to get my gun that's capable of 0.2, 0.1 minute groups if I can't just show up, like Dan was saying, and go right to a rock, or go right to my ladder, or go right to the chair that I brought, or off my tailgate, and be able to smack that piece of steel, strong side, support side, 3 times in a row. Like that's what matters, is being able to come right out of the gate and have that muscle memory kick in, and you're focusing all the other things that actually matter, your stability and what the wind is doing, down
Yeah, because that, like a national match, even local matches, I mean, you've got 40 minutes to an hour from the time you shoot to the next stage. So your rifle's going to cool off. The next shot's going to be a cold bore shot again. You haven't ran your bolt in an hour. You haven't looked through your glass in an hour. All these other things, so that's why I like when you first get there, or even dry firing in the basement, you set up your targets, get ready, but then you run a stage first. And that way you just know how, okay, if I haven't touched my gun in X amount of days, this is how I'm going to shoot my first stage. And then, some people have habits of doing, I forget to adjust my parallax, or, I forgot to put my magazine in. You can iron those things out. When you get to a real stage and you're on the clock, you're going to have so many other things that you're trying to think about, and you're going to forget twice as much. And
if you don't have a system, like a system that you've developed and you got everything in the right place, then it's just going to feel like a circus. And most guys are running around with eyes like this, feeling like...
Yeah, be really systematic about it. I know I'm trying to get better at this. I know one of the guys that we shoot with, Clint Adams, he does the same thing every stage. He looks at the targets, he writes down his dope, and he has this system. He loads his magazine, and he does the same exact thing every single stage. That guy's always ready for every single stage. Man, I've got up to stages where they say, shooter ready, shooter understand the course fire, yeah, I'm ready, ready, engage. I go to get down, run my bolt, click. I don't even have my magazine in there. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. So then I throw my mag in, and then I lost 15 seconds or whatever. So it's systematic, I think, approach.
So when I show up to any stage, I go through the same 3 things every single time, and I should probably add a fourth. But I show up to the stage and I'm getting ready. Guy's cleaning up his brass or whatever, and I go dope. Check, make sure my dope is on scope. Check, see the scope. The zoom is where I want it. The parallax is where I want it. It's dialed to my first target, and then targets. So I go through that like 2 or 3 times. Scope, dope, targets. Dope, scope, targets, dope, scope. Okay. Shooter, are you ready? Magazine, yes.
You'll find out what works for you though when you're going. You'll get a routine where, okay, I want to load my ammo and then do my dope and then find the targets, or whatever it is. You'll find what works, but get that system down, because it's more than anything, it's a mental game. I know the best matches I've shot, man, I had a rifle shooting like 3/4 minute, at the end of the barrel, and it was my best match. And it's just because it's a mental game. And if you forget, if you're not preparing before each stage and knowing where each target is, and you're not preparing, you don't have your dope right, or this one you're supposed to shoot 1 round at, but the second target you're supposed to engage with 3 rounds, and then the third one 2 rounds.
But you're still so busy trying to figure out what's going on that you missed crucial information like that.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter how good your gun's doing if you're shooting at the wrong targets.
Yeah, you're gonna miss.
Yeah.